Hi and welcome. Today I'm talking about Murder at Union Station by David S. Pederson. This review is of an ARC or advanced reader copy that I got from NetGalley in return for an honest review. To start with, a bit about this book. Set in 1946, a woman is found dead in a steamer trunk at Union Station, Arizona, US. The trunk belongs to Gertrude, the victim's housemate Charlotte, whose father hires our detective and protagonist Mason Adler to try and prove his daughter's innocence, as she is assumed to be the chief suspect. This case is inspired by a real-life incident that happened in 1931, which is referenced throughout the book. I'm going to start off with my overall impressions before delving into the deeper points of this book, to allow those who wish to know less about the story to leave and enjoy the book themselves. But I will not, of course, spoil the ending of the mystery. I really enjoyed this book as it blends two things I like in crime books, and to a certain extent books in general. As previously stated, this book takes place in 1946, which puts us a little after, but still with the vibes of the golden age of crime. The cast of characters is a reasonable size, not small enough that you can keep tabs on everyone at once, but small enough that when someone is mentioned again, you can remember who they are. Furthermore, a large proportion of these characters are LGBT+. Mr. Adler, our detective, is a gay man, and two of the suspects are a lesbian couple, though due to the time period they live in, they have to hide this fact. We also see briefly Alfred Brody, a black man who discovers the body. All of these characters are treated with dignity and respect by the author that would not be forwarded to them if this book was written when it was set. However, there is in-text racism and homophobia directed at them. The people who show these beliefs are not meant to be liked by the readership, which is why I don't mind it being there too much. I personally take the view that sometimes having these things in text add to the world, which can be a very hateful place, as long as it is not presented as something that is supposed to be liked by the reader. However, I also know that if you're having a bad day and you read these things which attack your specific identity, it can be quite unpleasant, so I thought it was worth mentioning. The one more impactful thought I had on this topic is that the victim herself is homophobic and threatens her landladies, the aforementioned lesbian couple, with the police. For me, this meant that while I wanted to know how she died because the puzzle was interesting, I suddenly felt very little sympathy for her and did not feel bad that she was dead. If the homophobia was the motivation for her death, then I would have felt that justice had been fulfilled, though I do not advocate for murdering homophobes. However, since another motive was used, I just felt a bit cold towards her in a way that take a little of my enjoyment from the book. I did also notice one of the clues earlier than the detective, and while did not have enough information to completely solve the case, it was annoying having to wait a few more chapters for the detective to investigate something that I had spotted earlier. However, there was a different thing that I thought was going to be a clue that ended up not being one, so I guess the author and I are even on that count. I also love the subplots which show Adler's relationship with his landlady and friends. The support they give each other and casual allyship in a world that is actively hostile towards them is wonderful to see, and reminded me that even in the worst of times, there are still people with kindness in them. I couldn't help but wonder if Adler's friend Walter was straying too close to the gay stereotype, was fully seeing some of my friends in his actions. Personally, I think that he is just on the safe side of the line, and this is redeemed by his contrast to other queer characters, showing a range of ordinary people living their lives. Overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this book and will read other books by this author in the future, but now let's look at the crime scores. For characters, I give this a 4 out of 5. The suspects who are just in this case are a little flat, but the ones that are supposed to be sticking around for a while are lively and interesting. Representation. I give it as 4 as well. The characters are treated well by the author, and while I do understand on one level why the racism and homophobia was there, on the other hand, it could have just as easily not been there. Investigator. For this I would say that Adler is a 3. He's a solid detective, and while we are not always allowed to see everything he does, often know of inquiries he makes, even if not the information that it yields. I do wish, however, that there was a little bit more insight into his current theories instead of just a current line of questioning, sometimes what felt like more for the sake of due diligence. Motive and method gets a 3. The method was not inspired, but has a reasonable chance of success if the body had been found even a couple of hours later. And while the motive was solid, I did feel that more compelling ones were presented in the book that I would have liked to see more. Finally, for execution, I also give this book a 4. It was a good book that I enjoyed reading, and while I probably would not go and reread this story, I would be tempted to pick up another book by this author if I saw it in a bookshop. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe that you don't miss another upload, and have a nice day.